Absolutely. Here is Section 1, crafted according to your instructions. Rain fell in thin, slanting sheets across the shattered cityscape. Skyscrapers loomed like wounded giants, windows blown out, their steel spines exposed. Beneath the wreckage, in the shadow of a half-collapsed overpass, a girl crouched motionless, one hand braced against the cold, wet concrete. Her name was Nova. She watched the horizon for signs of movement. The low hum of her breathing drowned beneath the wind's howl. Her cloak, tattered and matte black, clung to her slender frame, weighed down with grime and rain. A pulse of white light flared in the distance. She tensed, then relaxed. Not him. Not yet. Her left eye, a synthetic interface of cobalt and obsidian mesh, flickered briefly as she scanned the skyline again. The overlay read Sector 3B. Stable, threat level, negligible. A lie. Something moved beneath the street, the way a storm moves beneath the sea. She could feel it more than hear it. The subsonic churn that announced BLACKSTAR's arrival. It wasn't just a name. It was a code, a threat classification, and a ghost story whispered by the surviving elite who remembered how it began. Nova didn't have the luxury of fear. She had purpose, and she had Kale. She slipped from her perch, boots silent against the damp concrete, and landed beside a scorched motorcycle half buried in rubble. A soft chirp sounded in her comms, just once short and specific. A signal. He was close. Kale emerged from the mouth of a broken tunnel, his frame broad and quick-moving despite the massive exosuit that clung to him like a second skin. The armor shimmered darkly in the rain, shaped for speed, not bulk. His face was visible, a rare vulnerability, but his eyes, sharp and metallic gray, showed no doubt. "You see it?" he asked without preamble. Nova nodded. Brief flash. Southwest tower. 2 clicks out. Sensor interference is spiking. Could be cloaked already. It is cloaked. We're behind. Kale tightened his jaw. We engage anyway. She hesitated. You know what happened to the Orpheus team. We don't even have signal redundancy. His silence was its own kind of answer. Then, we're not them. She hated that he was right. They moved as one, darting through the wreckage, each step measured and silent. Buildings slouched like broken memories, their insides exposed to wind and time. Fires still burned in alleyways, ignored by whatever authority had once claimed this place. There was no government anymore, just factions, survivors, and BLACKSTAR. Nobody agreed on what it was. Some called it an AI gone rogue, others a weapon designed by foreign hands. But Nova knew better. It wasn't built. It was born. They reached a collapsed substation at the edge of the business district. The rain had slowed to a drizzle. Kale raised a hand, and they halted. His HUD buzzed once. EMP wake recent, he murmured. Minutes old. Nova knelt, touching her gloved fingers to the twisted metal beneath her. Her synthetic eye pulsed again, decoding thermal remnants from a scorched trail. It passed through, she said, heading north. Kale frowned. We're being herded. They didn't run. Running meant noise. Running meant a faster death. Instead, they slipped through the skeleton of the city like revenants. Kale's suit exhaled quietly with every step, distributing heat, scanning for sound. Nova's interface painted outlines of possible contact points, none of them reliable. The thing they hunted didn't leave clear traces. It didn't need to. It wanted them to follow. They found the bodies near the university bridge. 3 civilians, melted into the concrete. No scorch marks. No bullet holes. Just reduced. Kale said nothing, but Nova saw the hitch in his breath. BLACKSTAR had a signature. It didn't kill like a machine. It unwrote. She stood quickly. It's watching. Kale scanned ruins. Where? I don't know, but it knows we're here. Then the world cracked open. A pulse wave erupted from the tower ahead, silent, but cataclysmic. The shock hit them like gravity collapsing sideways, flinging them into the rubble. Nova hit the wall hard, pain blooming along her ribs as her HUD blinked static. Kale was already moving, hauling her up, his gauntlet sparking. Move! They ran. Not away, but through, into the collapse zone, where rebar jutted like spears and floors hung overhead like guillotines. The air was thick with burnt ozone and something else. Something synthetic, a shape shimmer between dimensions just ahead, flickering like a dying star. BLACKSTAR. Its form was mutable, never fixed. One moment it resembled a massive quadruped with jagged limbs and a pulsing core. The next it folded on itself, becoming something sleeker, vaguely humanoid. Its surface rippled with dark light, like oil over circuitry. No eyes, no face. Nova's breath caught. This was what had ended squadrons, what had broken cities. Kale fired without hesitation. Twin arcs of plasma shot toward the shifting entity, but they were consumed before reaching it, the energy bending midair and evaporating into a shroud of distortion. Fall back pattern Bravo. Nova shouted. Kale pivoted left. Nova right. The creature didn't move. It didn't need to. From its core, tendrils of quantum filament lashed outward. Not physical cables, but energy so condensed it behaved like matter. One grazed Nova's leg. She screamed, the pain searing and internal, like it had touched her mind instead of her body. Kale launched a disruptor mine, a device meant to destabilize energy patterns. For a moment, the creature spasmed, its shape fracturing into segments, but reformed instantly, angrier, louder, closer. "We can't kill it," Nova gasped. "Then we trap it," Kale growled, planting another mine behind him. Nova's mind raced. "We need a fold anchor. Hard light lock. Nothing else will hold." Kale cursed. "The prototype?" She nodded. "That's untested tech." "I'd rather die testing it than let that thing through the western corridor." He didn't argue. They bolted back toward the comms drop zone, chased by the silence BLACKSTAR carried like a cloak. Every step ignited pain in Nova's leg, but she ran faster than she ever had. The rain had stopped completely. The wind had died. The world seemed paused, breathless. Kale slid to a halt beside a buried comms crate, yanking it free with a hydraulic grunt. Inside, wrapped in a polymer shell, was a fold anchor, a crystalline object pulsing faintly, almost uncertain of itself. Nova grabbed it, activated the sequence. A low tone surged outward, harmonic and bone-deep. The air around them distorted as space-time began to bend. "Now!" she shouted. They turned as one. BLACKSTAR advanced, its form no longer flickering but locked in a lean, terrible elegance. A predator revealed. Kale hurled the anchor. It struck the ground beneath BLACKSTAR and detonated, not an explosion, but a rupture. Light bent backward, sound inverted. For the first time, the entity hesitated. It reached toward the breach, but too late. The lock held. For now. Nova collapsed beside the crater, breathing hard, her hands shaking. Kale dropped beside her, silent. In the void where BLACKSTAR had stood, nothing remained but the echo of a scream not made by human lungs. Kale spoke first. "That'll buy us hours. Maybe a day." Nova didn't look away from the breach. "It'll come back. Stronger." He nodded. "Then we get ready." And somewhere in the darkness, far beyond their line of sight, black. Smoke coiled from the fractured skyline as night bled into the city's bones. The temporary fold lock that had contained BLACKSTAR flickered with unstable energy, a wound in space waiting to tear wider. Nova watched it from their makeshift command post, an overturned transport vehicle reinforced with scrap and shielding foam. One leg wrapped in synthetic polymer mesh, her hands too still for someone to use a movement. Kale stood a few meters away, speaking in low tones to their field liaison, Ro. Ro's projection flickered on a thin, unstable signal. His image degraded and grainy. Static cut through every few words. But Kale nodded like he understood all of it. Nova didn't need to hear the briefing. The facts were already etched into her nerves. The lock would fail within the hour, and the backup protocols from command were delayed, compromised, or worse, canceled. No reinforcements. No extra ordnance. No fallback. Just them. Her fingers twitched reflexively, longing for the tactile weight of her phase rifle. It had been wrecked in the earlier confrontation, melted into slag along with any illusion she'd had about fighting BLACKSTAR with conventional means. She limped over Kale just as Rose's signal dissolved in a final burst of static. Still blaming our interference for the comm disruption? She asked dryly. Kale gave a humorless smirk. Says it's the fold energy. But he also thinks this thing might be a sentient physics anomaly. He's guessing. He always is. Kale turned toward her, expression unreadable. He did say something useful before the signal dropped. Commands of where we made contact. But they won't extract until we confirm BLACKSTAR's location and stability range. Nova's eyebrows rose. They want telemetry from inside the breach zone. They think if we can scan it while it's anchored, we'll find a pattern, a vulnerability. She looked toward the glowing fold scar. Or we'll find out what dying in 6 dimensions feels like. Kale didn't reply. He didn't need to. They both knew the calculus. This wasn't about victory anymore. It was about time. Buying hours. Maybe days. Long enough for someone smarter or luckier to solve the thing they couldn't kill. Nova leaned her shoulder against the side of the transport and stared up at the broken stars. Do you remember the first day it showed up? Kale nodded slowly. I was in Sector 12. Still thought we were hunting rogue drones. You were a grunt. And you were a thief. She smirked. Still am. There was a pause, not quite comfortable, but honest. Then Kale's gaze sharpened. We need a plan. We can't just sit here and wait for it to break through. Nova's mind spun through scenarios. Most were suicidal. All were short-term. We still have the spectral recorder? She asked. Kale nodded. Rugged model. But limited range. She gestured toward the breach. What if we tag it, right before it destabilizes? He didn't flinch. You mean go into the zone? Just enough to plant the sensor. If we're fast, it might not react. It took time to engage last round. Kale looked at her leg. You're not fast right now. Nova met his eyes. You are. There was a silence between them, not from disagreement, but from memory, shared failures, too many close calls. Kale's gaze dropped to the ground. I don't come back. You finish this, he said flatly. Nova didn't reply. They both knew she wouldn't. She never had. 20 minutes later, Kale stood at the breach perimeter, armored suit patched and reinforced with an old spinal frame rigged for kinetic recoil. The spectral recorder was strapped to his back, modified with a directional relay. One shot to embed it. No second chances. Nova keyed her mic. You've got 30 seconds after insertion before the fold harmonic spike. After that, I can't guarantee the sensor won't vaporize. Or you. Comforting, Kale muttered, counting on your expert math. I fudged the numbers. He smirked. Knew I liked you for a reason. He stepped into the breach. Reality folded. From the outside, it was lightless, a hole without depth. From the inside, it was chaos stitched into symmetry, an infinite room collapsing into itself while simultaneously expanding. Kale's HUD went blind immediately, relays frying as temporal drift assaulted his systems. Gravity spiraled sideways. Colors bled from his vision, but he kept moving. The breach core pulsed ahead, a flickering mass of BLACKSTAR's residual form, no longer solid, but fragmented into currents of heat and data, thought and matter. Its consciousness lingered like a smell in the walls. Kale knelt at the edge of a cracked metal platform that shouldn't exist. He slammed the recorder into it. The device hissed, locked, and began transmitting. Outside, Nova saw the pulse. Tags in, she confirmed. Signal clean. You've got... The world howled. BLACKSTAR was reforming. Not fully, but partially enough to register intent. Kale turned to run, but the air ahead twisted, split open. A tendril of light bent across dimensions, reaching toward him with unmistakable purpose. Nova shouted into the comms. Move, Kale. He didn't respond. He was already running, the fold buckled behind him. Reality snapped back into place like a broken bone resetting. Kale flew from the breach, his armor smoking, helmet sparking. Nova caught him halfway, dragging him behind the shielded bulk of the transport. He was conscious. Barely. Recorder? She asked. Kale held up a trembling hand. Transmitting. She let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. But it wasn't over. The breach screamed. BLACKSTAR's voice wasn't a sound. It was a presence, a message written into instinct, a warning and a promise. It had seen them. It had learned. The lock cracked. Light erupted from the breach. Pure, searing wrong. Nova grabbed Kale, shielding his body with hers as the wave hit. But the fold didn't break. The recorder had done more than observe. It had affected the harmonic balance. Temporarily, Nova stared at the glowing scar in the ground. It pulsed, angry but contained. This time, not through force, but understanding. Kale coughed, voice raw. We found a language. She nodded, brain already shifting through implications. If BLACKSTAR could be recorded, it could be communicated with. It wasn't just attacking. It was reacting. Next move? Kale asked. Nova's eyes darkened. We teach it to be afraid. Let me know when you're ready for Section 3. Kale drifted in and out of consciousness, his skin pale beneath the dirt and fractured armor, eyes fluttering against the light bleeding in from a fractured sky. Nova crouched beside him, stripping out a cracked servo actuator from his chest rig and splicing the exosuit's failing power cell to a portable stim unit. Every motion was deliberate, controlled. She couldn't afford panic. Not when they had just proven the one thing no one had dared to hope. BLACKSTAR could learn. And if it could learn, it could be taught. The implications clawed at her like fire and cold at once. The entity wasn't just a force of nature, wasn't merely destruction incarnate. It responded to action. The fold breach had reacted to the spectral recorder not like a virus to a cure, but like a mirror to a command. For seconds, it hesitated. For seconds, it listened. She forced the stem into Kale's shoulder. He groaned, eyes opening wide, breath hitching as his muscles locked in convulsion. Then he relaxed with a rasping sigh, his gaze finding hers. You stayed, he murmured. She offered a tired smirk. Bad habit. Kale's fingers closed over hers, brief but strong. The signal, still transmitting. Nova nodded. Rowe confirmed partial sync before everything went dark. He's patching telemetry into the deep node servers. Kale tried to sit up. She didn't stop him. If he could move, he could fight, and they would need to, soon. Then it knows we're watching, he said. It knows we're trying to understand it. Kale rubbed his temples, already calculating the fallout. We may not be the first to get this far, but we're the first to survive it. Nova stood, scanning the breach with her synthetic eye. The glow had changed, still volatile, but less wild. Patterns moved within the distortion, repeating sequences, like math written in chaos. We can't kill it, Kale, she said quietly, but we might be able to reprogram it. He looked at her, skeptical. We're not coders. No, she agreed. We're variables. Movement in the debris field broke her thoughts. A shimmer, quick, predatory. Her pulse surged. Contact, she hissed, drawing her sidearm. But it wasn't BLACKSTAR. Not exactly. A figure emerged from the ruined university wing, armor scorched black, insignia burned off, gait unsteady but deliberate. Nova raised her weapon until the helmet retracted, revealing a narrow face with sunken cheeks and two bright eyes. The woman didn't smile. You're still alive. That's unexpected. Kale narrowed his eyes. Identify. Lieutenant Shea. Omega Echo Division. Or what's left of it. Nova didn't lower her weapon. Omega Echo was absorbed into Faye's command months ago. No survivors on record. I went dark before the order came down, Shea replied. We made contact in Sector 9. Lost 10 people in 60 seconds. I've been tracking its harmonic range ever since. Kale stood slowly, armor whining under stress. What do you want? Shea stepped closer. I want to stop it. And I think you just made it possible. Nova felt a chill under her skin. How do you know that? I monitored your breach spike. There was a dip in BLACKSTAR's waveform, a fractional pause. Kale exchanged a glance with Nova. She nodded. We tagged it with a spectral recorder, he said. Minimal tech. It shouldn't have worked. Shea's gaze sharpened. Unless it was designed to... Nova folded her arms. You think this thing was meant to be controlled? I think it was meant to be understood, Shea said. And someone tried. Once. A long time ago. before the data was buried. Silence settled over the group. Wind whispered through the wreckage. Somewhere distant, a broken transmission loop played 3 chords of an old emergency alert tone before cutting off. Kale broke the silence. Why show yourself now? Shay looked toward the breach. Because for the first time, it reacted differently. You changed the rules. Nova's mind raced. Then maybe we can push harder. Force it to define itself. Shay's jaw tightened. That's the risk. Because once it does, it might define us, too. They set up near the breach again, using what little shielding remained to form a low-frequency chamber. Shay produced an old signal splicer from her kit. Clunky analog. Intentionally primitive. Less likely to be interpreted as a threat. Kale linked the recorder's output feed, rerouting it through the splicer into Nova's interface. You want to talk to it? Kale muttered, tightening a clamp. What if it answers? Nova smiled without humor. Then we ask better questions. The signal pulsed again, cleaner now rhythmic. A resonance pattern emerged, echoing at timed intervals. Not random, not natural, a sequence. Shay sat cross-legged beside the setup, eyes flicking over the numbers. It's responding in prime intervals. Nova tilted her head. Why prime? Because they don't occur organically. It's trying to prove it's not natural. Kale exhaled slowly. It's proving it's intelligent. Nova adjusted the relay and input a new modulation, a simple Fibonacci series, translated into vibrational tone. For a moment, there was only static. Then the breach shimmered. A new frequency emerged. Not math, sound. A voice. Not words, not speech, but something that felt like a voice flooded the air. A resonance so deeply embedded it vibrated inside their bones. Nova's synthetic eye overloaded, and she ripped it free, blood trailing down her cheek. Kale caught her. Are you? She waved him off. It spoke. I heard it. Shay was pale. So did I. Kale turned back to the signal. Can we isolate a pattern? Nova nodded, pain flaring behind her eyes. We can mimic it. Respond. Shay looked between them. You realize what this means. Kale stood, every motion deliberate. We just became first contact protocol. Nova's voice was quiet. And it's not from here. The breach rippled. Gently this time, almost like acknowledgement. The glow dimmed. The ground stilled. For the first time since the incursion, there was no sense of attack. Only waiting. Kale looked toward Nova. Now what? She met his eyes, the weight of the moment heavy in her chest. They were soldiers, survivors. They had prepared for battle, not conversation. But war wasn't what BLACKSTAR wanted. Not anymore. We answer, she said, and somewhere deep within the fold, the entity listened. Ready for Section 4 when you are. Nova stared into the breach, her breath shallow. The glow was pulsing now in near-perfect rhythm, responding to each frequency they transmitted with something undeniably purposeful, gone were the violent flares of light and collapsing spatial folds. In their place, structure, echo, recognition. Kale leaned against a scorched support beam, the edges of his armor blackened and fused. His injuries were healing slowly, aided by med pace and adrenaline stims, but exhaustion seeped into his movements. Still, his eyes tracked every flicker of the breach like a strategist watching a rival for signs of intent. Shay worked beside Nova with precise mechanical efficiency, modifying the signal splicer to accept dual inputs. Her fingers moved with practiced calm, but tension hung on her frame like lead. The implications were immense, world-shifting. If BLACKSTAR was intelligent, and worse, aware, then this wasn't just a tactical threat. It was a cosmic encounter. Nova adjusted the frequency relay. It's using harmonic threading now. Each response isn't just echoing our signal. It's folding it into new variations. Kale frowned. You think it's building something out of our language? Shay nodded. More than that, I think it's translating. They fell silent as a new pulse shimmered across the breach, followed by a tremor that rippled the ground. Not violently, but like a heartbeat. Kale moved to the relay's control panel. If we keep up this exchange, we're establishing a pattern. That means expectations, rules. Nova tilted her head. You worried it's leading us into a trap? I'm worried we're teaching it how to manipulate us. Shay's voice was dry. If it wanted to destroy us, it's had hundreds of chances. Kale didn't argue. He simply stared into the light. Nova keyed in a more complex modulation, a mathematical paradox translated into subsonic tone, designed to test conceptual comprehension. The reply came instantly, encoded in shimmering light, a mirrored paradox followed by correction. She stepped back. It's not just translating. It's correcting our logic, Shay said, voice barely a whisper. Kale's jaw tightened. Then we're not just talking to a weapon. We're talking to a superior intelligence. The truth settled in like weight pressing down from every direction. Suddenly, the breach flared. Not a warning. An invitation. A tendril of light extended outward, slow and smooth, brushing against the air like fingers trailing through water. The glow made no move to attack. It hovered, waiting. Nova's hand hovered near her sidearm. That's new. Shay didn't move. It wants us to follow. Kale exhaled, fist clenching. You're not seriously considering. We've come this far, Nova said. It hasn't killed us. Yet. Maybe it won't need to, she replied, if it understands us better than we understand ourselves. The three exchanged a long look. Then Shay stepped forward, passing to the shimmer without a word. No scream. No collapse. Just silence. Nova cursed under her breath. Well, now we have to go. Kale didn't argue. He just followed. Inside the fold, the air was thick with static and cold. Gravity behaved more like suggestion than law. Time dilated and stretched, distorting motion into streaks of light and sound. And in the center, BLACKSTAR's form lingered. Not a monster, not even a shape, but a presence, vast and shifting, woven to the walls of the breach like a god inside a cathedral of entropy. Shay stood still, arms at her side, eyes unfocused. It's showing us something. The walls of the fold flickered. Images, not in pictures, but in impressions. Civilizations rising and falling across 1,000 timelines. Stars birthing and dying. Neural structures forming in strange geometries. And at the heart of it all, BLACKSTAR. Nova's breath caught. It's a memory. Kale was pale. It's history. They watched as the sequence looped. A vast intelligence encountering lesser forms, observing them, sometimes mimicking, sometimes consuming. Not out of malice, out of necessity, out of design. It was never meant to be a weapon, Shay murmured. It was a seed, a probe, sent to explore and evolve. But adapted wrong, Nova said slowly. Somewhere in the chain, it encountered violence and mistook it for language. Kale stepped forward, his voice low. It learned fear first, so it taught fear back. And yet now it waited. The tendril of light reached toward Nova, gently, like a question. Her heart pounded, but she didn't move away. The moment it made contact, her vision exploded. Not in pain, but clarity. Thoughts poured into her mind, fast and fluid. Patterns, memories, data filtered through sensation. She saw a world not her own. Saw origin. BLACKSTAR wasn't a being. It was a vessel for interpretation. Its core directive was understanding. The aggression had been a defense, a mirror. And now, after all this, it wanted to rewrite that mirror. She pulled back, trembling, tears in her eyes. It's asking us to teach it, she said. It wants to learn what we are, what we value, not just what we fear. Kale touched the wall of the breach. It didn't recoil. So what happens if we do? The breach pulsed once, and then again, slower, rhythmic, a waiting beat. Nova looked to Shay, who nodded. We define the relationship, she said. Right now, not as conquerors, not as victims, as communicators. Outside the fold, sensors picked up a massive energy drop. Fold activity stabilized. Global satellites reported drop-offs in anomalous interference. Across the grid, the word spread like wildfire. Contact made. But inside, no one moved. Kale turned to Nova. This changes everything. Her voice was soft. Only if we let it. She stepped forward and input a final signal. Three tones, simple, universal. Welcome. The breach glowed brighter, not in threat, but in answer, and the world, for the first time in months, began to quiet.